Welcome to a special weekend edition of the AI Brief from the YPO Technology Network. I'm Stephen Forte. So here is the question I want to sit with this morning. If every company on Earth can buy the exact same artificial intelligence you can, where does your advantage actually come from? Not the temporary kind, the kind that survives. This past week was a loud one. Export controls tightening, a senior researcher defecting from one lab to another and taking a fight about it public. Frontier labs and the companies building the biggest AI systems being valued like small nations. The arc all week was the same arc: who controls AI, who owns the engine. This weekend, I want to put the news down and ask the question underneath all of it, because that question, who controls the engine, is the supplier's question. It is not yours. You do not run a frontier lab, you run a company that has to win against other companies, most of whom are about to have the same engine you do. Let me name the tension plainly. A foundation model, the large general purpose AI system from a company like OpenAI or Google that you access through an API, the technical pipe that lets your software talk to theirs, is commoditizing fast. Your sharpest competitor can rent the identical model on the identical terms, which means the efficiency you get from quote unquote using AI is real. And it is also not durable. Everybody gets it. A gain everybody gets is not an advantage. It is table stakes that arrived with a press release. So where does advantage live after the model is a commodity? I am going to braid together three people who have each answered a piece of this well, credit each by name, and turn each one into something you can actually do Monday. Then I will give you my own read on how they fit together. Stay with me. Start with Benedict Evans. Evans is an independent technology analyst. No firm, no product to sell, just decades of pattern reading about how these platform shifts actually play out. He sat down with Lenny Rachitsky, who writes the most widely read newsletter for product and growth operators in tech, in late May. And Evans said something I have not been able to shake. He said we are in the 1997 phase of AI. Early, genuinely exciting, and genuinely uncertain who wins, what the business models are, or which of today's giants is tomorrow's footnote. Then he delivered the line that does the most work in the whole interview. He said AI is as big a deal as the internet or mobile, and only as big. Sit with both halves of that. The first half is the hype check. No, this is not the singularity. Calm down. The second half is the part the skeptics miss. The internet was only as big as the internet. The internet only reorganized the entire global economy. So Evans is not minimizing anything. He is calibrating you, big enough to remake your industry. Not so magic that it suspends the laws of business strategy. Here is Evans's core move for you. When software becomes trivially easy to build, when anyone can spin up the feature you spent 2 years on in an afternoon, the product stops being the moat. Distribution becomes the moat. Distribution meaning the thing that actually puts your product in front of a paying customer, your channel, your sales force, your installed base, the relationship you already own. When the feature is free to copy, the company that already owns the customer wins every time. The copy arrives on a shelf nobody walks past. And Evans hands you a beautiful piece of history to hold on to, the spreadsheet. VisiCalc was the first spreadsheet program, launched in 1979, the app that made people buy the early personal computer just to run it. Then Excel. Together, they automated a staggering amount of manual financial calculation. So the number of people doing financial work collapsed, right? Wrong. It went up because when the cost of analysis falls through the floor, demand for analysis explodes. We did not fire the analysts. We asked them for 10 times the analysis. That is the most useful anecdote I can give you about your own workforce this year, which leads to Evans's workforce reframe, and it is sharp. Stop asking what percentage of this job can AI do. Ask instead, is this a task or is it a job? A job is a bundle of tasks plus judgment, plus relationships, plus accountability when it goes wrong. AI is extraordinary at tasks. It is still terrible at owning the outcome. AI eats tasks. It rarely eats whole jobs. 2 practical hacks from Evans before I move on. First, audit where you actually own distribution versus where you rent it. The places you own the customer relationship outright, and that is where an AI-built feature defends you, because owning the customer is the thing your competitor cannot clone overnight. The places you rent your distribution from someone else's platform, That is where you are exposed, model or no model. Second, take two key roles and remap them as tasks versus job. Find the tasks AI can absorb, then redeploy the freed hours into the judgment work. Do not just cut the head count and book the savings. The savings are the boring half. The redeployment is where the spreadsheet effect actually lives. That is framework one. Distribution is the moat. Now, the second piece, which goes a layer deeper inside your own walls, this one comes from Dr. Wael Salloum, writing in MIT Technology Review, the magazine published by the university, one of the more credible places to read about where this technology is genuinely heading, rather than where the marketing says it is. Salloum's argument is the one I most wish every CEO would internalize. The advantage in enterprise AI is not access to the model. Everyone has that. The advantage is owning what he calls the operating layer. The operating layer is the place where AI gets embedded into your actual workflows, governed, supervised, and wired to feedback loops. A feedback loop just means the system learns from what happens after it acts. It is the difference between a tool you use and a system that gets smarter every time you use it. Here is the compounding mechanism, and this is the part to write down. Every time one of your human experts overrides the AI on a hard exception, the weird claim, the edge case contract, the customer who does not fit the pattern, you capture that correction and turn it into reusable policy. Do that 1,000 times, 10,000. Over time, your system encodes the accumulated judgment of your best people applied to your specific edge cases, and that is something no competitor can buy. They can rent the same model. They cannot rent 10,000 corrections made by your experts on your problems. Think of it like a master craftsman training apprentices for 30 years. The competitor can buy the same tools. They cannot buy the 30 years of corrections. The model is the tool. The corrections are the craft. So the reframe Salloum gives you is this. AI is not a model selection problem. It is an operating model problem. The model is a commodity input like electricity, like bandwidth. The proprietary asset is the governed loop you build around it and the data exhaust it throws off as it runs. The companies arguing about which model to pick are arguing about which brand of electricity to buy. The companies building the loop are wiring the building. The practical hack here is precise. So do exactly this. Pick one high-volume decision process, claims, approvals, pricing exceptions, support escalations, something that happens hundreds of times a week. Instrument it so that every single expert correction gets captured, not lost. Then review once a month what the exceptions are teaching you. That monthly review is not an overhead meeting. That is you watching your moat get deeper in real time. The feedback loop is the asset, not the model. Framework 3, and this one is about your people, which means it is really about you. Ethan Mollick is a professor at the Wharton School who has become the most practical voice in the room on how organizations actually adopt this technology. Not the theory, the Tuesday morning reality. Mollick's starting point lands hard. Efficiency-focused adoption creates no lasting advantage, none, because all firms have the same models. Every efficiency gain gets competed away. You save 15%, your competitor saves 15%, the customer pockets the difference, and the scoreboard does not move. Durable advantage comes from innovation. And innovation, Mollick argues, needs a specific structure, 2 pillars. The first is the crowd. You empower a wide base of employees to experiment with AI on their own real work because the best uses are not handed down from a strategy deck. They are discovered bottom up by the people closest to the actual job, who know where the friction really is. The person doing the work has seen the broken process 10,000 times. The executive has seen the summary slide. The second is the lab, a dedicated function, small is fine, that captures the best experiments the crowd produces, validates them, and scales them across the company. And here is why you need both. Crowd without lab gives you 1,000 scattered private hacks that never compound, brilliant tricks that die on one laptop. Lab without crowd gives you an ivory tower building elegant solutions to problems nobody actually has. The crowd finds the gold, the lab makes it spend everywhere. Mollick's hardest point is the one aimed at the corner office. The bottleneck is not the technology, it is leadership posture. Does your organization actually reward someone for reinventing their own job with AI? Or does it quietly punish the person who automated their afternoon by handing them more afternoon? The culture is the constraint. You said it. So the hack is concrete. Name a small lab team. Give the crowd explicit permission and protected time to experiment. Permission they will not assume they have unless you say it out loud. And create one visible ritual where the great employee found uses get surfaced and scaled in front of everyone. Reward the reinventors publicly. People do more of what gets a person applauded in the room. Now let me pull these three together because the synthesis is the whole point and it is my own read. Here is my view. The model is the commodity. The moat is everything you wrap around it. Evans gives you the outer wall, distribution, the customer relationship the copycats cannot reach. Salloum gives you the inner engine, the governed operating layer, and the proprietary feedback loop that encodes your expert's judgment a little deeper every day. Mollick gives you the fuel, the innovation operating model that turns scattered employee experiments into compounding company capability. Distribution, loop, culture. Three walls of the same fortress, and the model is just the standard issue brick everyone buys from the same yard. Now connect it back to the week we just had. Export controls, the defecting researcher, labs priced like nations. Every one of those stories was the suppliers fighting over the commodity layer, over who controls the brick. And it is loud, and it makes headlines, and it is almost entirely not your fight. The opportunity for an operating company is to stop asking which model and start building the layer above the model that no supplier can take from you. Let them fight over the engine. You own the car, the road, and the drivers. And here's the honest part, the humility beat that makes the rest of it work. Nobody knows the end game. It is 1997. Anyone selling you certainty about which model or which vendor wins in 2030 is selling you a horoscope. So the correct strategy is not a giant bet on one model or one provider. It is building organizational muscle, distribution you own, feedback loops that compound, a culture that experiments, that pays off no matter which model wins. You are not betting on a horse. You are building the track. The track collects rent on every race. So Monday morning, three things. One, map where you own distribution versus where you rent it. The owned columns are where your AI-built features actually defend you. The rented columns are where you are exposed, and you should know it on purpose. Two, instrument one decision loop. Pick a high-volume process, capture every expert correction, review it monthly. Start the loop that gets smarter than your competitor's loop because it is fed by your people on your problems. Three, stand up a crowd and lab rhythm. Give your people permission to experiment, name a small team to scale what works, and reward the reinventors out loud. Culture is the bottleneck. You are the culture. The model is not the moat. Everything you build around it is. That is this special weekend edition of the YPO Technology Network AI Brief. I am Stephen Forte. If this was useful, send it to another member. I will be back Monday with the news. Until then, stay sharp.